Good evening, everyone. I'm glad you're here. We begin at 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time on Thursdays. I'm Dr. Talika McCoy, and if this is your first time, welcome to our space. If you're joining for the second time, the third time, however many times, I am so delighted that you took time out of your day to be here. So at 6:59, I started about a minute early because I want to give people time to come on the conference call line if that's the way they choose to join. And I want to give people time to come in live on Facebook, and to those who are watching via YouTube even after this time, or if you're watching through Facebook and it's after 7 o'clock on Thursday, I'm glad you're here. Okay, so thank you for your patience as I give people time to join in live if that's what they choose to do. It's 7 o'clock right now, so I will go ahead and officially get started. Good evening, good evening. I see people coming in and saying good evening to me. I am delighted to have you here. On this evening, I did share again what the discussion was going to be for this evening. If this is your first time joining, just know that I will have a green backdrop many times, and that's like the talk, okay? So that's when we deviate from our normal Bible study. And thank you, Sister Michelle, for saying you love my hair. Thank you so very much. I had a flight and had some delays, and I got in safely, and I needed to wash my hair, and I just threw it up. So I thank you so much for that compliment. I really do. I really do. So this evening, I want us to focus on this exploration. You know, I said 2024 is the year to explore, you know, not being afraid to explore new things, to, you know, find out more things about yourself, to really think, you know. And so 2024, exploring in 2024. So then on today, I want to focus on exploring Carter G. Woodson's thoughts. Really his thoughts as written in the book, The Mis-Education of the Negro. And I have my copy here. And before I really get started, so this is the second time I'm saying I'm starting, but I want to gift a copy of this book, and I needed to give people time to come in live, because how could I give you the book if you're not here? All right. So I see that there are more people here, and it's only 7:02, so we have time. So I want to ask a question so that I can gift you a copy of the book that I'm going to be talking from on this evening. The book is written by, you may already know, right? I said it, Carter G. Woodson. So there are other things that you know about Mr. Carter G. Woodson. So let me ask you this. Let's see. When thinking about Carter G. Woodson, what is he known for? What is he known for? That may not be the way I want to ask, right? I think you know what I'm asking, because I think somebody has the answer, and there's more people coming in. What did he do when thinking about, okay, there's a historic week because of his work? I'm trying to ask it the right way. What is that week called? Let's see. Maybe I should ask it differently. He's the father of... let's see. Maybe I should ask it a different way. Carter G. Woodson launched what week? Hey, there you go, Sister Barbara. You're the first person I saw, so you win. That's right. So because of his passion for really the historic contributions of Black people, he launched Negro History Week in 1926. And now we know it has been expanded to Black History Month. So he is the father of such. So congratulations, Sister Barbara. Make sure you let me know where to send your copy of the book that we are going to focus on this evening. So many of you have this book, so then you know that the cover may be different. Just depends, you know, on which edition you have. But on this evening, again, just want to talk about this book And again, congratulations, Sister Barbara Williams. You were the first person. Wait a minute, Minister Mary Hill. Wait a minute. I see that you were before Sister Barbara. Oh, you know what that means? I just have to send it to both of you. So Minister Mary Hill and Sister Barbara Williams, if you would just inbox me or email me at drtalikamccoy@gmail.com, where you want me to send the book, and I'm going to send it to both of you. Congratulations. Can we congratulate Minister Mary Hill and Sister Barbara Williams? I see you, Brother Daniel, saying that's your sister-in-law. Yes, Sister Williams is your sister-in-law, and she told you about our gathering, so you're joining because of her, so glad you're here too. All right, so let's get to it. I think I gave us enough time. And welcome to those on the conference call line. So glad you're here too. So exploring Carter G. Woodson's thoughts as written in The Mis-Education of the Negro. So Carter G. Woodson was a scholar. Carter G. Woodson was a historian. Carter G. Woodson was an author, and he was an educator. And really throughout the course of his life, he wrote many books, not just this book. So he published many books, and really his books focused on Black history. He has a book called A Century of Negro Migration that was written in 1918. He has a book, The Education of the Negro Prior to 1861, that was published in 1919. He also wrote the book, The History of the Negro Church. For those ministers out there, if you don't already have that one, get that one. That was published in 1921. And then he also has another book that he wrote on Black history called The Negro in Our History. And that was published in 1922. So again, he really appreciated and dedicated his life to celebrating the contributions of Black people. So as I mentioned before, because of his passion for the historic contributions of Black folk, he launched Negro History Week in 1926, the second week of February. So he did that to coincide with the birthdays of Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass. All right. So Woodson's concept was later expanded, as we just talked about, to Black History Month. All right. So always remember Carter G. Woodson. Okay. It's important to do what I'm about to do now, because sometimes when we talk about Black history, we hear about slavery. We hear about the bomb that was dropped. When we think about Black Wall Street, we hear about and think about lynching. We think about Jim Crow segregation. We think about Black codes. All of those things are part of Black history. They're just not the only history. And I don't know about you, but I want to be sure that we expand the narrative to understand that Black folk in America are people who have history that goes beyond trauma. And many times, even when we turn on the television, we see so much about our trauma stories. And it's important that we teach the parts of Black history that can be very challenging. And then Black literature like this is what our kids need in their hands, and what we should be teaching even in K through 12. So this is why when you hear people talking about Black history as American history, it's because we want to be sure that our history is seen as American history, but not only that, but seen as the fact that we are significant in our contributions to America itself. And young people need to know that. They don't only need to know about Harriet Tubman, leading folks out of slavery. They don't only need to know about Rosa Parks and the bus situation. They don't only need to know about Montgomery and Selma, Alabama, and Frederick Douglass. Those are good. And here is an author, a scholar, an educator. So we need to celebrate all of the contributions, not just thinking about trauma, but all of the contributions that Black bodies have given to this country. So then I want to be sure during Black History Month, I do this every year. I've talked to you about Henry the Box Brown. I talked to you about how he escaped slavery by being in a box. I don't know if you all were with me then, but I did that one February. I talked about Harriet Jacobs. I've given you information about her. Just in many spaces, I've talked about a lot of things. I just want to be sure that we remember that we are scholars. Black men are contributors. Black women are contributors. So in this book, published in 1933, Carter G. Woodson, The Mis-Education of the Negro, he really gives his opinion. And one of the things that I appreciate about our space is that we realize that people are always arguing about something, and people are always trying to make themselves right and trying to make other people wrong and arguing and all this stuff. And that's fine. This space is a space for information, and you can do what you will with it. All right. So what I hope that I'm doing is helping us to understand other people's viewpoints so that we can grow ourselves, because some of us don't know where we stand on anything, and some of us are only following what other people say, and some of us just want to argue. But let's get some facts. Let's listen to someone else's opinion, and then let's consider, what will I do with that? This is the opinion of Dr. Carter G. Woodson, even as we consider the American education system. So in his opinion, the American education system trained blacks to be dependent. And for him, that was an issue. He thought that the black psyche was being conditioned to occupy inferior spaces. You go to these places to be what they call educated, but you're miseducated because really you're being trained. You're being indoctrinated to the point where the system of education is influencing you to be inferior, because the superiors, they even have control of the literature itself. They have control of the way by which they tell the history. They have so much control. So in his opinion, this is what he said. I'm going to open the book and I'm going to read it to you, all right? So that you will maybe turn with me if you already have it. And if you don't, maybe you'll buy it. And for those who were gifted the book, Minister Hill and Sister Barbara Williams, this is on page 2, talking about his opinion that the American education system trains blacks to be dependent. This is an example. He said, at a Negro summer school, and he uses Negro because during his time, the time in which he lived, we were called Negroes. We've been called a whole lot of things. Now we're called, African Americans. Some people are offended when we're called blacks. And then there was a time when we were called, coloreds. Well, in his time, Negro. So he said at a Negro summer school 2 years ago, a white instructor gave a course on the Negro, using for his text a work which teaches that whites are superior to blacks. So again, this is his opinion that the American education system trains blacks to be dependent. He said when asked by one of the students why, asked this white instructor why he used such a textbook, the instructor replied that he wanted them to get that point of view. Even schools for Negroes then are places where they must be convinced that they are inferior. The thought of inferiority of the Negro is drilled into him in almost every class he enters, in almost every book he studies. If he happens to leave school after he masters the fundamentals, before he finishes high school or reaches college, he will naturally escape some of this bias and may recover in time to be of service to his people. A large majority of the Negroes who have put on the finishing touches of our best colleges are all but worthless in the development of their own people. Such persons may thereby earn a living at teaching or preaching what they have been taught, but they never become a constructive force in the development of the race. He said to handicap a student by teaching him that his black face is a curse and that his struggle to change his condition that's hopeless is the worst sort of lynching. He says it is strange then that the friends of the truth and the promoters of freedom have not risen up against the present propaganda in the schools and crushed it. So then think about 2024. there are some people who are rising up and they are speaking against the present propaganda in schools. So we're coming, we shall overcome. We're working on it. Some of us are working on it because we are concerned, again, remember the Florida situation, about the fact that America does not want to teach all of American history. So he's saying, why is that? He says most of what the universities have offered as language, mathematics, and science may have served a good purpose, but much of what they have taught as economics, history, literature, religion, and philosophy is propaganda. Misdirected. It's misdirected the Negroes, thus trained them. So I just mentioned about the history, right? So I have to be so careful about how we consider his opinion, especially when we consider the way that America is right now. If it wasn't a problem, there wouldn't be people, coming against some of the systems in our schools that stop our kids from learning all of history, for example. He says propaganda. So then, listen to this. Another example. He says, in the schools of business administration, remember this book is entitled The Mis-Education of the Negro. In the schools of business administration, Negroes are trained exclusively in the psychology and economics of Wall Street and are therefore made to despise the opportunities to run ice wagons. They despise the opportunities to push banana carts and to sell peanuts among their own people. Foreigners who have not studied economics but have studied Negroes, they take up this business and they grow rich. So, thinking about those Negroes who are trained in business administration, the fact that sometimes they will not take on the jobs that they've seen in their community. And he's thinking about the psyche of a black person who has gone off to be educated, but the miseducation that happens because now they can't push a cart. They can't think about doing those kinds of things. I know that's what my grandmama did. That's what my great-grandmama did. But what he's talking about is using your educational strength that you did gain to not then be trained to go and run after somebody else's dream or what somebody else told you to do. But remember what your grandparents showed you and how you can improve that in order for the uprise of your own people to happen, to be realized. That's his opinion. Do with it what you will. But then he talks about the effort to imitate. The effort to imitate. So when he talks about that, this is what he says. The effort to imitate. Think about this, because this is the seat of trouble in Woodson's eyes. The effort to imitate. Educated people. They hope to make the Negro conform quickly to the standard of the whites and thus remove the pretext for the barriers between races. They do not realize, however, that even if the Negroes do successfully imitate the whites, nothing new has thereby been accomplished. He says you simply have a larger number of persons doing what others have been doing. The unusual gifts of the race have not thereby been developed, and an unwilling world therefore continues to wonder what the Negro is good for. So remember, I told you he is concerned about celebrating the contributions of black folk. But what he's also saying here is that because these Negroes who are miseducated, black folk, want to imitate the whites, we're not ever going to see their unique gifts because everybody is going to try to be the same because white is the standard. He says, educated people then, they don't want to hear things like, they do not like to hear expressions like Negro literature. Why does it matter? We're all the same. I mean, why would you read that? Don't you dare. Because, again, that is a contribution delivered through a black body. They don't want to hear expressions like Negro literature. They don't want to hear expressions like Negro poetry. They don't want to hear things like African art or thinking black. They rather say, I don't see race. I said that. That wasn't Carter G. Woodson. I need to kind of separate some of the things that I'm saying and what he's saying, okay? Let me make sure I do that. I just said that. I'm reading and then I'm saying some things because I realized some of this in 2024. But if you don't have the book in front of you as I'm reading my highlights, you may think that I'm quoting him. And I want to make sure that I am taking responsibility for what I say, because what I say, I mean. And so I want to be sure that I take responsibility. So when I just said, I'm reading from a book, they do not like to hear such expressions as Negro literature, Negro poetry, African art, or thinking black. And roughly speaking, we must concede that such things do not exist. So now I'm saying, yeah, we must concede that such things do not exist. We must concede and say, I don't see color. Because see, if you don't see color, then you don't have to see me. You don't have to see Negro literature. And I'll say black, because I guess that's what we call us now, right? Okay, black. I'm fine with black. Okay. So, or African American, maybe that's what you like. So whatever, put that in there for you. So if I don't say black literature, if I don't say black poetry, black art, thinking black, then it's like it doesn't exist. So then you can say that that you don't see color. And so that means you don't have to credit the contribution to black bodies. See why he wanted there to be a Negro History Week? He says these things did not figure in the courses which they pursued in school. And why should they? Aren't we all Americans? Then, okay, aren't we all Americans? Okay, then whatever is American is as much the heritage of the Negro as of any other group in this country. This is such a good book. The highly educated contend, moreover, that when the Negro emphasizes these things, he invites, when you emphasize these things, black people, you invite racial discrimination by recognizing such differences of the race. He says the Negro leader then must so deal with the situation as to develop in the segregated group the power with which they can elevate themselves. So you've been segregated, so how can you elevate yourselves? The differences of races, moreover, is no evidence of superiority or inferiority. This merely indicates that each race has certain gifts which the others do not possess. It is by the development of these gifts that every race must justify its right to exist. See that? So I'm trying to make sure that I'm reading what he says and sharing some of what, some of my experiences and whatnot. But can we see here some of his thoughts, especially when considering his opinion and then considering the effort to imitate? So I want to talk about one more thing from the book. And when he talks about, the last thing though I need to say, the development of these gifts that every race must justify its right to exist. Okay, so even when thinking about the importance of celebrating black bodies, the importance of that is because we need to see the contributions, right? And so when thinking about hearing people say support black businesses, a lot of that goes back to this book. When considering supporting the black church, it goes back to this book. When considering black institutions, HBCUs, historically black colleges and universities, it goes back to this idea that race was not created as something. I hear you saying something is wrong with the sound. Is anyone else having audio issues? Okay, so you can't hear me. Can anybody hear me? Okay, so you can hear me on the conference call line, but I think on Facebook they're saying they can't hear me. You can't hear me. Okay, they're saying something is wrong with the sound. Okay. Okay, so what I'll do, and I'm going to tell you on the conference call line, so please don't hang up. I'm going to go out and come back in. Others are saying that they can hear me. My sound is good. Okay, so I have 2 people who cannot hear me, and then other people are saying they can hear me. Okay. Well, I'm going to keep talking. Oh, you logged off and logged back on, Minister Hill. Okay, thank you. Okay, and everybody else can hear me. Okay, thank you for letting me know, because I know I'm giving a lot of information, but I really need for this to, you can hear me on Facebook. Okay, I really need for this to be heard. And if I need to come back on and do it over again, I'll do that too. Okay, you can hear me just fine. Thank you, Brother Timothy. Okay, so let me move past this. Okay, let me move past this because other people can hear me. Okay, so this is the last part here. I want to talk about failure. You say you can't hear me, but making sure it's not just me. Okay, so it seems like it's 2 of you. I see my mom and I see Miss Hawkins. You 2 are the 2 saying that you can't hear me. So maybe if you go out and come back in. Okay. All right. So thank you for your patience, and thank you all for communicating with me, because it's important that you hear me and that I hear you or see you saying that. Okay, so now I'm going to turn the page. So if you have this book, and for those of you who will get it, I'm going to travel to page 38, okay? Because now I want to talk about his thoughts, Woodson's thoughts when considering failure to learn to make a living. So if you have any young people around you, you might need to get this book and read some of these parts that I'm not going to be able to get to, all right? So Woodson believed that Negroes, that black people, black bodies, I'm saying non-white bodies, black bodies in particular, he believed that Negroes should make opportunities for themselves instead of begging others for a chance. Let me say that again. Stop begging others for opportunities. Stop begging them for a chance, and instead create opportunities for yourself. So again, when talking about black businesses and supporting black businesses, churches, institutions, it's really important. We know that. But listen to what he says, his thoughts, his opinion, when considering the failure to learn to make a living. He says, when a Negro student works his way through college by polishing shoes, he does not think of making a special study of the science underlining the production and the distribution of leather and its products that he may someday figure in this sphere. So he's saying that work your way through college by polishing the shoes. Why didn't you think about, producing something to provide income, to make a living for yourself? He says the Negro girl who goes to college hardly wants to return to her mother if she is a washerwoman. But this girl should come back with sufficient knowledge of physics and chemistry and business administration to use her mother's work as a nucleus for modern steam laundry. He says the so-called education of Negro college graduates leads them to throw away opportunities which they have and to go in quest of those which they do not find. Have you ever heard someone say, a black body, black person, a black body tell you they went to school and they just couldn't find what they were looking for. They couldn't find that job. Well, what Carter G. Woodson is saying is rather than going out to seek, that which you don't find, go back home and consider your mother's work, your father's work. Go back home and consider how you can apply that business degree, how you can apply that knowledge in physics and chemistry. Start doing some of that. And when you do that, not only will you build yourself and your confidence, as a black person, but you will also build your community. Build your community. Don't beg or struggle for a cause. Go back home and remember where you came from and consider how you might even serve in that capacity. He said, Negro businessmen have made mistakes and they are still making them. He says, but the weak link in the chain is that they are not properly supported. So that goes back to the black businesses, right? They are not properly supported and do not always grow strong enough to pass through a crisis. The Negro businessman then has not failed so much as he has failed to get support of Negroes who should be mentally developed sufficiently to see the wisdom of supporting such enterprises. So this is why I have these gatherings, because I think it's important to give people information. People can choose what they choose, but I think it's really important to give people information because mentally, if you are black in America, you've been developed in a certain type of way. You've been shaped. I've shared with you before how even with the way I wore my hair, it was a shaping that happened, right? It was shaped because I would see dolls with long, blonde, flowing hair, and my black psyche told me that there was something wrong with mine because it wasn't like that. You see, my hair grows kinky out of my scalp, which simply means that it grows with a really tight curl. Well, that's not the way the baby dolls looked for the most part when I was growing up. So then that means that psychologically, I was being conditioned to believe that there was something wrong with the texture of my hair. So just things like that. When we think about mentally developed, we need to be mentally developed sufficiently, to see wisdom. That means that I had to come into the knowledge that it was okay that there was more melanin in my skin. I had to realize that as well. What else? There were other things. There were just a lot of things that were contrary to me, teaching me that maybe I wasn't a mistake, but I wasn't the standard. I could never be the standard. And so that meant that I would always be forever with low self-esteem and think that I'm less than. So it wasn't until for me, I went on a journey of reading books like these. And there are many more, stay with me, but reading books like these that made me think about even the way that I was educated. I was like, wait a minute. I was like, wow. And so then I got to the point where I read this part in Carter G. Woodson's book. This is on page 44. He says, if the highly educated Negro would forget most of the untried theories taught him in school, untried theories. So one of the untried theories for me was, what if it was okay when I was a little girl to have my hair the way it was? What if that was okay? The theory is that God made all things and it was good. So then that means that when God made my hair, it was good. So that means I have good hair. So I had to go back and I had to try that theory. God made everything and it was good. Yes, a theological type thing, but God made everything and it was good. So you know what? I'm not going to go natural. Women say that, right? People say that. I'm not going to go natural. You don't go natural. You go back to natural, right? And you start to embrace the theory that God really made everything and it was good. So I went back to natural. See that? So I was born natural and then I deviated from it because I had an issue with myself. Not talking about you, I'm talking about me. I had an issue with myself. So then I went back. Highly educated Negro. If the highly educated Negro would forget most of the untried theories taught him in school, if he or she or they could see through the propaganda which has been instilled into their mind under the pretext of education, if they would fall in love with their own people and begin to sacrifice for their own uplift, if the highly educated Negro would do these things, they could solve some of the problems now confronting the race. So, if you are black and you look around and see all the problems with black folk, you need to ask yourself, how are you helping with the uplift of the race? So, Mr. Carter G. Woodson, he died in 1950. He was 74 years old. He died of a heart attack. He's gone now. We're still here. We have the book, but do we have the energy? Do we have the wisdom? Do we have the wherewithal? Are we going to try? So his legacy lives on even in February and beyond. But in February, think about it, his legacy, his thoughts, his teaching, the way he educated lives on when schools and churches and institutions across the nation study Black American history. However they study it, good, they're studying it. His legacy lives on when he empowers Black Americans, even the educated ones of us who think we know everything. But we have to ask ourselves, in what ways have we been educated? His legacy goes on when we get to educate others in the achievement of Black Americans. I'll tell you as I close that one of the things that I loved when thinking about this man, Dr. Carter G. Woodson, I keep saying Dr. Carter G. Woodson, Mr. Carter G. Woodson, when thinking about him, I was traveling to Louisville, Kentucky. And in the airport, if you've looked at my Facebook page, you see that I took special time because in that airport, when thinking about this man's legacy, there was a great display. And you know what it said? It said, "The sky's the limit. A celebration of the history of Black achievements in aviation." Oh, I hope you looked, because you may not get to Louisville in February. And I don't know how long they're going to have it up. But in that airport, there was this beautiful display, an impressive display. And I posted it. And I'm grateful that I was able to stand there and read that information. So wherever you get the information, I tried as hard as I could. I may not have done a great job. That's why I wanted to send some people the book, okay? I don't always do well. That's why I'm not a manuscript preacher, because when I have to read something word for word to you, it can be challenging. I have little dots and notes, and it just comes out. So I tried my best. I hope I did enough to where you won't just celebrate Black History Month, but you'll remember the man's legacy, as his opinion and his words and his strength and his wisdom encouraged the celebration of Black achievement. So be sure to celebrate. You don't have to be Black to celebrate. You just need to be human. All right? So may we all be human as we celebrate contributions of those who have come before us. And may you be one to contribute, because one day you're going to be the ancestor. Blessings to you, and thank you for being here. Happy Black History Month, which we celebrate 365 days a year. Have a good night. Thank you for being here. And thank you on the conference call line as well. I did not forget you. Thank you for being here. Have a good night.